Hey, welcome back, everyone. Pleb Underground, the signal without the slop. If you like getting the signal without the slop, consider subscribing. All right, guys, we've got some big stories. We are going to dive into it. And yes, I'm starting off not being muted. So already the show's off to a better start than yesterday. So let's dive into some interesting topics. Tim Draper, he's back. More bullish predictions. We're going to take a look at what he had to say. The Fed is going to be holding a summit in October. I think it's the week of October 21st. It's a payment innovation summit. Very curious what that's going to be about. I can give a hint. Stable coins. Anyways, let's continue on. The Clarity Act gaining more support. That's probably more about framework for crypto and stable coins, let's be honest. But either way, we're going to take a look at a quick little clip about that and see what they had to say. And the UK, there's a bit of a scare that the UK is getting digital IDs. We're going to dive into that. Yeah, those digital IDs, it's starting off with a very specific use case. However, this path of implementing bad ideas, it's kind of par for the course, right? It's the type of thing that we see over and over again. And of course, guys, what would be a daily live episode without Paper Bitcoin Summer? Not gonna lie. Paper Bitcoin Summer kind of winding down. And it looks like the regulators are catching wind of, I know this sounds crazy. People don't like this. Businesses that don't actually make any money and just dilute shareholders to buy Bitcoin. Apparently it's not a real business. Who would have thought, huh? I'm surprised. Anyways, guys, you know the deal. We're going to show some love to the Pleb Underground sponsor, and we are going to be right back to dive into all the drama and the fun. And of course, I want to say good morning. Good morning, Eastside Tony. Good morning, ABW, Silent Lamb. Thank you guys for joining and commenting. All right, let's do it. We'll be right back. Pleb Underground is sponsored by Archimedes Emporium. Discover the pinnacle of precision engineering, starting with their Bitcoin logo wall clock, meticulously machined in Maine from a solid block of aerospace-grade aluminum, ensuring unparalleled durability and performance. Experience the difference of a product made without compromise. Head on over to Archimedes Emporium. All right. Let's dive right into it. Here we go. Tim Draper.
Bitcoin price prediction. So my first one was $10,000 by 20. It was in 2014. I made the prediction. I said 3 years, 2017, $10,000. Everybody said, "What are you talking about? It's $180. You're off by like 2 decimals." I said, it's going to hit it. And it did. And then it dropped down to 4,000. And at 4,000, I said, okay, it's going to hit 250,000 in 4 years. And that was in 2018. And it didn't. And part of that was all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt spread by the SEC.
Okay, I'm sorry, ACP. I was trying not to be that guy, but I was going to say that he derives his special powers from his eyebrows. I didn't want to be a jerk like that, but yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. Anyways, let's continue.
And that slowed down growth. It's slowed down innovation. It slowed down progress. It slowed down technology. I mean, just generally technology. And so it didn't hit that number yet. Well, eventually the government is going to have to come to see the light. And the moment they see the light, 250, it's going to blow through 250.
See that? See, all of that sounded great, right? Like I was excited throughout that whole thing. Look at that. You know, this guy that spends all this time in the markets, analyzing market data and all kinds of stuff. And it all sounded great. And then we get to the wait till the government shows up to pump my bags. Yay, the state. Anyways, Yeah. So look, Tim Draper, right? He believes the government is going to help fuel, fuel this pump, right? It's going to fuel the pump above 250K. Guys, look, I'm not holding my breath for the government. I don't really care if the state stacks Bitcoin. The reality is that the more businesses accept Bitcoin, use Bitcoin, save in Bitcoin, it just takes more of that Bitcoin off the spot market. It's that simple. And the more people realize the qualities, the more people desire to hold as much Bitcoin as possible so that they can be exposed to Bitcoin's qualities. It's that simple. So I get it, right? It all sounds wonderful, but those eyebrows aren't doing him any favors. You'd think his wife would have said something, right? Like I know my wife would have. My wife would be like, look, I can't have you going out with those eyebrows. And I'd appreciate that. I genuinely would, right? It's kind of like when you have something stuck in your teeth, you hope that the people you're talking to, even though it's going to be kind of weird, you're hoping they're going to be like, listen, you should, got something in your teeth. It's the same thing. Anyways, okay. Sorry. Moving on from there. Yeah. Let's go take a look at, you know what? Maybe we'll go take a look at Paper Bitcoin Summer, right? Maybe we'll take a look at Paper Bitcoin Summer. Let's dive into that. Here we go. So yesterday, I think, or the day before, I was talking about Griffin Digital Mining. This is the company that the Trumps merged with, essentially. And yep, here it goes. American Bitcoin goes public today on the NASDAQ with 2,443 Bitcoin. I took a look at the chart. The chart was freaking weird on this thing because I'm pretty sure it was trading around 40 or 50 bucks. And then after they did this merger, it's like now $8 a share. Anyways, I'm not even going to get into that stuff. It doesn't even matter. But there you go. Another company comes to the plate. Boom. They've got Bitcoin. Pump my bags. And speaking of which, North Carolina State Treasury increased its position and strategy by $7.36 million in Q2. And guys, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but all the TradFi bros are super excited because they think that tomorrow the Standard & Poor's inclusion of strategy is 100%. I personally, I have no idea if it's 100%. I think I showed this on a show last week. It was all the qualifying qualifying criteria that MicroStrategy needed in order to be included in the Standard & Poor's, and they do in fact fulfill all of those requirements. So there is no real reason for them not to be included in the Standard & Poor's. Very curious to see what actually happens there. But there you have it, North Carolina State Treasury, right? They're buying more shares of strategy, and I mean, look, this is part of what we've been, what a lot of us have been saying is that more and more companies, right? They do kind of want to have Bitcoin, but really what they want is exposure to Bitcoin, and these are the products that they can actually get their hands on. So, okay. Another one, right? So this is an interesting one. Melius purchased 9 Bitcoin and now has 604 Bitcoin. Now, pulling this thing up, I'm guessing it's just a brand new equity. They just started trading, so kind of remains to be seen. But yeah, if you bought them on the first day because they hold Bitcoin, you're down. Yeah, you're down pretty bad. Right? So from 280 down to $2. So it's either way, they just started trading. These are monthly candles, right? So sorry, these are weekly candles. So each one of these is 1 week of price activity. So 3 weeks. It's not really enough time to determine anything at all, right? Initial market action. This is something I learned before I got into Bitcoin. When it comes to IPOs or it comes to newly issued shares on the market, I personally like to wait at the very minimum for at least 1 quarter to pass so that I could read at least 1 quarterly report. Other people would even tell you to wait for 3 quarters. You know what? I think each person should just do whatever they're comfortable with. But for me, it's like, I want to see some data first, before I start looking at this stuff. And again, I'm not saying that I am endorsing this or anything like that. I'm just saying, if you're looking at it, do yourself a favor, wait till there's some data. Okay, moving on. More Paper Bitcoin Summer. Ouch. So, Sequins. This is the one that Swan has been helping with. You know how I always talk about the reverse stock splits? You know, like yesterday I showed there was that company. It was GP, ticker GPUS, right? They did a reverse split, 1 for 300, which meant if you held 300 of their shares, you now only had 1. So take a look at what Sequence is doing. Effective September 17th, Sequence will adjust its ADS to ordinary share ratio from 1 to 10 to 1 for 100. Okay, so you are going to have 10 times less shares. And the reason why businesses do this, I've explained this before, the reason why businesses do this quite often is to stay afloat, keep their index, their index membership, right? The index that they trade on. So, not a good look. Not a good look. Shout out to Predator for uncovering this. Predator is always on the ball. You may not like always what he has to say. I may myself not agree with everything he has to say. However, he is on the ball and he's paying attention. And yeah, when I saw this, I was just like, that is not a good look. Not even, what was it? Not even 3 months ago, they were touting that they were buying Bitcoin. They're becoming a Bitcoin treasury company. And already they have to do this reverse split to stay afloat. I hate to say I told you so. But businesses that don't make enough money, this is what happens. Anyways. On the final note of Paper Bitcoin, this is what I was saying, guys. Paper Bitcoin may be coming to, not Paper Bitcoin may be coming to an end. Paper Summer Bitcoin, or Paper Bitcoin Summer. Gosh, I'm losing it, guys. Okay, NASDAQ is stepping up oversight of companies that raise funds to buy and hold large amounts of cryptocurrency to inflate their stock price. No way. NASDAQ noticed that companies that have no earnings, like, you got to think, right? If a pleb like me is figuring this stuff out, the guys that actually went to school for this stuff and actually have degrees and actually work in this, they know this is happening too. Okay, anyways, but it's okay. The hopium feels good, right? The hopium feels good. Anyways, companies will now need to provide detailed disclosures about their crypto holdings. That to me doesn't really mean shit. In all fairness, that just means that they have to prove, right? It's just proof of holdings. That's all that is. That doesn't mean in any way that they can't be struggling, dying companies issuing more shares to buy Bitcoin. This move reflects the growing regulatory focus on crypto-driven stock market behavior. So, they think that they're going to mitigate. They think that they're going to mitigate some risk. But in all fairness, it's really just more regulatory bloat. That's all that is. Regulatory bloat to make it seem like they're paying attention to the little peon. However, it is a signal that they're letting these treasury companies know, hey, we know that you're not, or quite possibly being close to insolvent. Okay, we understand that, and we know that you're doing this as a parlor trick to raise money. That's essentially what that is. That's just a little signal for that. Anyways, all right. Here we go. We're gonna take a look at the what is this? The Clarity Act. This is the growing support. Right? This is the growing support around the crypto framework that everybody's so excited about. Let's watch this little video.
Get your take on the digital assets legislation. You just mentioned the Genius and Clarity Acts. The Senate Banking Committee still discussing the framework for that Clarity Act. Senator Tim Scott chairs the committee, and he said that he believes there will be between 12 to 18 Democrats open to voting for a market structure on digital assets. How are you expecting this to play out?
Well, I've really enjoyed working with Kirsten Gillibrand and Cynthia Lummis, both who've been real leaders. Chairman Tim Scott in the Senate has put together a working group on the digital assets framework. The Clarity Act in the House, which I wrote, got 78 Democrat votes here in the House. Back in July, we sent that to the Senate with really a suspension level vote. We got such overwhelming support by Democrats and Republicans. I would hope that the Senate would consider taking up the Clarity Act in their process and simply making improvements to it. I think that would be a great approach. But Tim Scott and his working group and the leadership of Subcommittee Chair Lummis and John Bozeman on the Ag Committee, they all have this at a top priority, and I hope we can get this done in the next few weeks.
Let me get.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Minus the marker sounds. So that's an interesting thing, that there's more support around the Clarity Act, right? They're rallying around that. At the same time, October 21st, this is happening. Federal Reserve Board announces it will host a conference on payments innovation Tuesday, October 21st, on how to further innovation and improve payment systems. Clarity Act, payment systems. It's all kind of coming together, right? Yeah. Look, it's no surprise to me. I know that, people want to imagine that it's going to be, it's going to be about Bitcoin, which obviously the Clarity Act has nothing to do with Bitcoin. And of course, payment innovations, right? You think they need to hold a conference to sit there and talk about Bitcoin? They're not going to be talking about Bitcoin. They're going to be talking about their shit coins. They're going to be talking about their stable coins. They are going to be talking about how to keep everybody corralled, okay, in their walled garden and feeling secure, right? We can trust the government, we can trust the system. More importantly, we can trust the banks. I wouldn't expect too much to come out of that summit. However, we are going to be paying attention to it, and we are going to report on it. And I'm calling it right now. It's just stablecoin stuff. That's all it is stablecoin stuff, and most likely, just trying to make sure that they all have the same game plan, right? We're trying to keep everybody in the gates, right? We don't want them going outside the gates. They got to stay here where they can play safely and we can monitor them. Anyways, guys, that's all we're talking about today. That does it for me. Have a great rest of the day, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Peace.